Hi friends, today I'm going to read you an insight from my book, Answer to Happiness. This particular insight is called Striving for Perfection. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Matthew chapter 5, verse 48. Choose the right, choose the right, choose the right. That phrase was drilled into my head the whole time I was growing up. I knew that at age 8 I would be baptized and get a clean slate, and then it would all be on my shoulders. I was terrified. Before and after my clean slate, I was pretty good until my teen years. Then, after so many bad choices, it was obvious I wasn't ever going to be good enough, so why even bother to try for an unattainable heaven? That thought was followed by many more bad choices. Why even try? I felt completely hopeless. But I really wanted a family, an eternal family. And to have that, I had to choose the right and make up for everything I did wrong during my teen years. I got married and we started a family, and the rule changed it a little. You'll never be perfect in this life. Just do your best, and God will do the rest. But how much did I need to do? 80%? 90%? And what if I fell short? What if God only pitched in 21% and I only brought 73%? If I miss it by an inch, I've missed it by a mile. Striving for perfection, but always fearing it might not be enough. I was overwhelmed, frustrated, and exhausted, and miserable. But I kept striving for perfection because the eternal salvation of my family depended on it. And I really loved my family. I really, really loved my family. Just do your best and God will do the rest. But had I really done my best? I knew I hadn't. There were times I slept in, times we didn't have family home evening, times the housework got too much to keep up, times I didn't plant a garden, lots of times I yelled at my kids, mostly because I really loved them, and I wanted them to choose the right. I even turned down church callings. I spent time watching TV, and it wasn't always lovely, praiseworthy, or of good report. Did I do my best with church attendance? I was pretty sure I hadn't. A lot of times I would drag my children there. A lot of times I would just drag myself there. And a lot of times I wouldn't go at all. God won't tell you to do something you can't do, so obviously I was slacking. I wasn't doing my best. And every time I did go to church, I was filled with guilt because I was reminded of more ways that I was failing. I was working myself ragged and making myself and my family miserable. And all the while, I was getting farther from perfection. But I kept working hard. I was physically exhausted, I was emotionally exhausted, and I was miserable. But I pressed on for years and years and years. And then I gave up. I stopped striving and resigned myself and my family to something less than heaven. And still I was miserable. I picked up a book to take my mind off my misery. Something I read made me think, I wonder if God loves me unconditionally. Immediately, I was filled with God's love. I was filled with joy, completely filled and totally unearned. I basked in this joyful love, and after a few weeks, I realized that this was the perfection I had been striving for. I was perfect. God's love made me perfect. Christ didn't just make up the difference, He did it all and more than 100%. Christ made me perfect. After all those miserable years of striving for perfection, I was amazed at how easy it was to be made perfect. Not by my works, but by God's grace and unconditional love. The commandment is to be perfect, not to do everything perfect. A tremendous burden had been lifted off of me. My guilt was gone, my striving was gone, and I knew eternal salvation was mine. God loved me perfectly, therefore I was perfect. Now, even when I make poor choices or just slack off, instead of wallowing in a pit of despair, I just shrug it off and move on. In fact, I found it is so much easier to do good when you are perfect than it is to try to do good in order to be perfect. Yes, there are still times when I feel overwhelmed, irritated, and guilty, but all I have to do is pause and turn my awareness to the fact that God loves me completely. And then my burden is lifted and I feel peace and joy. After so many years of striving for perfection, with eternal misery continually hanging over my head, I am finally free. Will you come join me? Set aside your works and open your heart to God's unconditional love. Be perfected in Jesus Christ. Your whole life will change. Instead of striving, misery, and guilt, and always coming up short, you are already there. You are already perfect. Just give it a try. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. Open your heart and ask Christ in.